Howdy there, David Duford at davidduford.com, where I help insurance agents like you become top producers. I'm doing today's video on the differences between selling final expense versus selling mortgage protection. The reason I decided to put on this video is I actually just got off a consultation call with an agent at around, earlier this morning. And he's interested in mortgage protection, but we had a conversation about final expense. As many of those older mortgage protection leads end up being final expense policies anyway, which warranted further discussion about the final expense business model. And I realized I haven't done a video on really explaining the pros and cons of each in order to help newer agents, maybe perhaps like yourself, determine which type of market is best suited for your personality. So let's begin and do just that right now. So the first thing we're going to cover is leads. There's a big difference in how final expense leads are generated versus mortgage protection. So if you look just at the direct mail side of things, final expense relies on anybody over 50 who makes under $50,000 in income, basically low income to lower middle class America. Mortgage protection, on the other hand, relies entirely on new home sales with some age and income restrictions in most cases. But what ends up happening is if you look at the total volume of leads generated in a given geography, it is much easier to generate more final expense leads than it is to generate more mortgage protection leads. Why? Well, because response rates are about the same, 1% to 1.5%, sometimes less. And if you've got, it's a lot easier to find 1,000 people making under $50,000 a year who are over 50 than it is to find 1,000 people who just bought a home. And that's on a weekly basis. So if you extrapolate this out further, what I have found is it's a lot harder to get a large influx of direct mail leads, at least for mortgage protection agents, than it is for final expense. It's a lot easier if you're a final expense guy to get all the leads you could ever use within a reasonable geography around where you live. So a lot of people opt to go to final expense just because it's simpler to get leads and stay busy, and that's really the crux of any insurance business, which is having enough people to see. With that said, the mortgage protection lead is going to be a lot better than what you're going to see with a final expense lead. It'll be very specific. It'll talk about critical illness, return of premium, other advantages and riders you can include. There's a lot of sizzle being sold in the lead, and I think a good agent will close a larger percentage of his mortgage protection leads for a higher case amount, which we'll talk about in a minute, just because the lead is a lot better quality. Plus, we're hitting somebody right in an event-driven part of their life where they just bought a new home and they're in debt. Now they're in a position where they're going to be more open-minded to this kind of stuff. So that's the big difference on leads. Next thing we're going to cover is working hours. This is a big difference. Final expense is 80%, 70 to 80% morning, mid-afternoon type of business, with about 30% of your work requiring some evening hours after rush hour to work with prospects. Since we're dealing with retirees, people disabled on a fixed income, many of them are just sitting around the house anyway if they're not at doctors, and our job is to go see them and sell them at that point. I used to start when I was full-time in the field at 8 o'clock in the morning for my first preset appointment. I know agents that start door knocking at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. That's totally fine. You can start prospecting. Obviously, the advantage there is that on a lot of your days, you can get home at a reasonable time and still spend time with your family. That should be important if you got a family. If you don't, then maybe mortgage protection is better for you. All joking aside, mortgage protection, you work when your prospects don't. So expect to work 3, 4 plus nights a week, starting probably about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the evening, going all the way until the midnight. Why? Because that's really the only times you can see your prospects unless you're working on a weekend day. So the big difference there, and I had a mortgage protection guy tell me this once. He sold mortgage protection a long time, had a bunch of kids in the family, and his wife just basically gave him an ultimatum. Switch up what you're doing or, there's going to be consequences. And it's sad to say that, but that's the kind of impact long-term a career can have when all you do is work at night. You won't spend time with your family. You won't see them after school a lot, and it just sucks. It's easier for an agent who doesn't have kids or a wife or a spouse to worry about that stuff. So hopefully you can see where I'm coming at. It's just hey, you may be fine for it, but just expect to work evening hours when it comes to mortgage protection. Next thing is there are different markets. So with mortgage protection, you're working kind of a middle class, blue collar, gray collar marketplace. Some of them, the income is going to be moderate range. People are moving up in their lives. They tend to be 30s, mostly 40s, 50s, 60s. And people who just bought a home, and they're still working, which is completely different from final expense. Like I said earlier, it's a 50 and older, although most of the people that you're going to sit with and who's going to have interest in are going to be 60 and older. And many of those people are retired on Social Security, drawing disability. So you've got to be willing to work with a different marketplace, I think. If you prefer a younger demographic, then mortgage protection is to be better suited for you. If you like working elderly people or people 60 and older, I don't know if I call that elderly. Get some people mad at me if I say that. Then final expense would be a good option for you as well. Last but not least is cross-sell opportunity. So a lot of what I talk about in my training videos is the importance of committing to a one singular focused approach or one product approach and at the outset of your career. Why? Because this business is hard enough doing one product and it's multitudes harder doing multiple. So it's best just to start with a product you like and can focus on and get good at. And what you'll find is if you decide to, you may be even in a position where you can transition over or start cross-selling other products. So the good news now is that in either final expense or mortgage protection, there is great opportunity to cross-sell. Now this is kind of where the differences lie as far as the quality of the cross-sell you're going to see from each market. And you've really got to decide for yourself which kind of attracts you the most. So if you sell mortgage protection, it's likely that you're going to be able to cross-sell things like annuities. You'll be able, especially to your older clientele, to sell the concepts of principal protection so they can't outlive their money. A lot of them will have rollover opportunities from existing accounts, IRAs, 401ks, that kind of thing. And then also you'll see index universal life deals as well too. A lot of people who are younger that want to start saving for their retirement, you can use these products in order to do that in a tax-free type of manner. So there's great opportunities to cross-sell more than just a standard non-med type of term policy with the mortgage protection market. The second thing to look at that you may want to consider if you're looking at final expense is there's a great opportunity not just for annuities, more the older prospects, kind of a cross-section there between mortgage protection and final expense to sell annuities to, but you also get the opportunity to sell Medicare products like Medicare supplements or Medicare Advantage. And the biggest advantage with this particular type of cross-sell opportunity is it develops renewal-based income. One of the things you're only going to get in the mortgage protection space is a great income that requires you to work for it. Now I know it's like, well, no duh, Dave, isn't that normal? Yeah, but there are products in the insurance space that will allow you to continue to make an income even when you put the work in many years ago. So with final expense, virtually 9 out of 10 people we see are on Medicare, or at least you write business on. And you can go back to those clients that you made through selling final expense and can cross-sell Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplements and start to develop a portion of your income in a passive manner. That's so wonderful, and I can't stress enough, if you want to develop some kind of passive income, the Medicare approach or using final expense to get the Medicare prospects is fantastic because they're all over the place. And you can develop some, if not all of your income to come every month based off of work you did in the past. So you can take the brakes off or take the gas off and spend more time with your family, go on long vacations and not suffer financially like you may if you write a first-year driven product for the entirety of your career. Not to say that it's bad. Everybody's got to make their own decision. But for a lot of us, we reach a point where we realize passive income is pretty important and we need to take steps to develop that. And if you don't want to develop an agency, which is not really passive really, and you want to develop true passive income, but do it through production, Medicare is a great route. So what's best out of all of this? Look, it's going to just depend on you. I started in the final expense space. I'm still here recruiting predominantly final expense agents. We also do mortgage protection, recruiting, sales and marketing programs, annuities, and Medicare as well. But for me, I'm glad I went in the final expense space. If I had not gotten into agency recruitment and development, then what I would have ended up doing is cross-selling Medicare at some point, because the great thing about the final expense space is the passive income opportunity that correlates with a first-year driven product, which is final expense. But there's going to be a lot of people that don't like the senior market, and that's cool. You know, you've got to figure out what works best for you, and maybe mortgage protection is better. The leads are going to be better. I think the prospects are going to be more inclined to buy more as far as an average case size than they would with final expense. And the great news is that there's opportunity in both, and you've just got to spend time figuring out what works best for you so you can make this a career and not a shot in the dark that only lasts for a millisecond. If you have any questions or comments on either final expense or mortgage protection, feel free to leave a comment below. I answer every comment individually. I'm happy to help you with anything that you can ask me with. If you're interested in joining my agency and want to learn more, go to davidduford.com, click Join Dave's Agency, and there you'll see a detailed analysis of all the sales and marketing systems that I help agents get involved with. Again, my name is David Duford at davidduford.com. Thanks for watching.